Hello, Kaya and Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to the Australian Local Connection at Microsoft Build. Before we kick off, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we live and work throughout Australia, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people viewing this event today. We pay our respects to elders both past, present and emerging, and recognise their ongoing cultures and continuing connection to land, waters and community. Our respect also extends to all First Nation and Indigenous peoples, as well as their ancestral lands. We are grateful to those who have created pathways for us to live with the many benefits we experience today. I'm your host, Ben Curran, and I'm the Cloud Solution Architect of Microsoft. I am Australian, and my pronouns are he and him. I have fair skin, grey hair, a short beard, green eyes, and I'm wearing a black shirt and glasses. Today, I'm coming to you from Whadjuk Noongar country in Perth, Australia. We hope you've enjoyed the keynotes and connection zone sessions that went live today. We'd really love to hear your favourite takeaway that has happened, so pop it in the chat. We'll also be answering some of the questions that come through to us in the Q&A window throughout the session, so please take this opportunity to connect with us. Today, we're joined by Dr. Vanessa Rowland, a founder and CEO, and Alexander Karan, co-founder and CTO at ClimateClever. Can you give us a bit of an introduction for yourselves? Let's start with you, Vanessa.
Sure. Thanks so much, Ben, and thanks for the opportunity to talk today. So my name is Vanessa, and I'm, as Ben mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of ClimateClever, and my pronouns are she, her. I have blonde hair and green eyes, and I'm wearing an aqua top, which you probably can't see, and bluey aqua matching earrings, and a black cardigan. And I'm coming to you today also from Perth, well, actually Fremantle, in Australia. So just a quick background or introduction about my sort of personal journey. I actually came from an academic background. I wrote my PhD on decarbonising cities and regions about 10 years ago, and sort of fell into academia for a decade, lecturing, supervising PhD students and doing research around climate policy and decarbonisation, which has been pretty depressing in Australia over the last decade. We've got change now. But the inspiration for ClimateClever actually came to me while I was at university, back when I was doing my PhD, and I'll tell you a bit about that later. But because of that, I started becoming really interested in entrepreneurship and innovation, and my university was great at offering lots of programs, incubator and accelerator programs, which I got involved in and participated in, and then later sort of mentored and helped to deliver. So I always sort of had a bit of a side hustle going on while I was an academic, because I just loved that idea of combining my research with business to deliver actual sort of solutions. But I officially launched ClimateClever in 2018 while I was still at the university. Got my first investment in 2019, which is when I formally left the university and jumped into the startup full time, and also was able to bring Alexander on as the CTO and co-founder. And as we all know, developer wages are extremely high, so I had to find a way to lock him in as my CTO. So fast forward a couple of years, we actually just had a baby last year, Wolfie, and he provides a lot of now inspiration and motivation to keep going with our mission around ClimateClever to make sure he's got a good future going forward in terms of climate change. And I'll pass it over to Alex.
Hey everyone, I'm Alexander Karan. I'm the CTO of ClimateClever, and my pronouns are he, him. I have dark brown hair, brown eyes. I'm wearing skinny jeans and Converse that match my top, and Harry Potter glasses, I guess. And I'm coming to you today from Perth, Australia as well. I'm a self-taught coder. I've been coding for over 12 years now. I started working in big business, which was incredibly frustrating because I built so many things that never saw the light of day. When I moved to Australia over 8 years ago, I sort of transitioned to working with startups. So I've been coding with startups for a long time now. I ran an app development agency for quite a few years, but for the last 3 years, I've been working at ClimateClever and enjoy having a positive impact from the code I write rather than just building things that I shouldn't. When I'm not working at ClimateClever, you can find me working at She Codes, helping get more women into tech. And I also do a lot of talks on tech and microservices and other stuff and privacy. And that's me.
Cool. I'm also a mentor at She Code. So yeah, it's a really great program and much love to the team there. So yeah, it's great to have you both with us here today. Now, the ClimateClever story and mission is really inspiring and powerful. For people who might not be aware of your company, can you give us a bit of an introduction into ClimateClever?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for saying it's inspiring. Yeah, so ClimateClever is a profit-for-purpose or a social enterprise business that aims to inspire action on climate change. Our mission is to make meaningful and measurable impact on climate change by making climate action affordable and accessible for everyone. So basically what we've done is create a platform that helps a variety of users from sort of homes through to schools and small businesses to accurately measure their carbon footprint and then actually reduce their footprint as well, and even go carbon neutral through the platform. And in terms of trying to address that affordability aspect in our mission, we also made the bold decision earlier this year to release a free tier of our platform, so anyone can sign up and use it for free. We also partner with local governments, so and in that sense we sort of aggregate all the users' data. It's all anonymised and de-identified, but we can provide that back to the local councils who are often have their own ambitious community carbon reduction goals and targets and KPIs, so we can provide that data to them. And we've just started working with larger businesses that are interested in measuring their supply chain emissions as well, because our platform is so data oriented. We can easily aggregate that for them. And just to really quickly let you know sort of the inspiration behind ClimateClever. It started, the idea, as I mentioned before, started when I was doing my PhD at uni, and I helped to certify the first carbon neutral school in Australia, and that really inspired me. But the process was so complicated, it was so time consuming and cumbersome, and there was absolutely no way that the school could do it themselves, let alone sort of the children, which is what I was hoping for. They really needed consultants. So what I really wanted to do was create a very simple, basic, fun, engaging platform that students could, actually put their data in and use it themselves, taking away that complexity, so they could really focus on reductions and reducing their footprint. And I wanted to, scale what we did with that one school with, all schools in Australia and hopefully soon globally as well. But at the time, like I said, I was at the university, very unsuccessfully applying for research grants to build this fantastic app. So we didn't get that. We eventually ran a pilot with 15 schools that they all paid to participate. It was subsidised by the local government. It was very, very low tech, very low budget. But it was really successful, and we had all these schools approaching us afterwards saying, can we join your program? And so that's when we eventually got some funding to build the first iteration of the ClimateClever platform, which I actually initially outsourced to Alexander when he was working at a dev agency for that first one. So we launched that in 2018, and then, like I mentioned, we then sort of evolved on to offering a platform for homes and businesses and local governments after that.
Yeah, and I've loved that you've made it really accessible, particularly like aimed towards like schools, kids, things like that. I myself am a user, so it's been really great and eye-opening to wander around my house. I've been going around with my school-age son, and we've been mapping out the rooms in our house and the sources of climate impact we've got around our house. So what does your product offering look like, and how has it evolved over time?
I'll let Alex jump in around how it's evolved, because it certainly has evolved, but just in terms of how it actually works, as I mentioned, it's designed to take the user on that whole journey. It's not just a carbon calculator, it's trying to take them through that process. So sort of the first section measure is where the users will enter their utility bills and other activity data, so like electricity, gas, water, waste, flights, all those sort of things. We're also trying to automate that process as well, so we can sort of scrape data and put it straight in there for them. And then, as what you just talked about, we then allow the user to sort of go around their home or school or business or office and count the different types of appliances and things that are consuming resources, to give you a bit of an understanding of why your carbon footprint is the way it is. And then the platform provides all these tips and advice of actions you can do, from no cost behaviour change things all the way through to retrofits and upgrades, which might have a cost. And then they can actually also purchase offsets through the platform as well, although we really try and recommend genuine reductions in consumption first. But we definitely needed a platform to do that, because as I mentioned, with that first pilot, we were using Excel spreadsheets to capture that utility bill information, and I think by week 3 we had iteration 15 of the Excel that we had to keep sending out, going, sorry, can you use this one instead? So it was a no-brainer having to have a platform to do all that. But that first pilot was great because it did provide sort of that a testing ground for those activities, which we then tried to have web enabled and built that in. But it's been a very long learning experience, and I'll pass over to Alex to tell you about the tech side.
I guess there's nothing wrong with Excel sheets. Many an app has been built inside Excel. Well, look, it started off as one big, huge platform. The front end and back end and database were all tightly coupled together. Fast forward, when I started full time at ClimateClever, we moved to separating the back end and front end to an API and a web app. Fast forward now, we have actually 5 web apps. We have like one for homes, one for schools, one for businesses, an internal admin app, and like another app for our partners as well. So there's like lots of apps, and obviously we split the API up into microservices as well. So yeah, there's lots of challenges and it's evolved, but really for us as well over the last year, like from a tech perspective and a coding perspective, sustainability has actually started to influence our journey. And we started looking at the cloud providers we use, looking at their sustainability goals underneath, and that's actually starting to influence our decisions in PRs, looking for duplicate code, how much code is actually there, when it's running, and that was one of also our reasons for moving our API onto Azure, is because Microsoft has some really great climate commitments, and under the hood they actually stack up. There's solid numbers and solid action there to back it up. It's not just dodgy offsets. And we joined the Founders Hub as well, which has really understood our need for having sustainability as at the forefront of our thoughts when we're coding and building our cloud infrastructure. And we've had so much help from them in achieving those goals as well.
Yeah, and that's really amazing. That's actually how I met you through the Startup Hub or Founders Hub originally, when it was the previous Adopt a Startup program, and it's now become Founders Hub and is now global, worldwide, with Microsoft staff from all over the world able to help startups like you. And yeah, it's really great seeing that push for sustainability within your company, because we're also on that same journey with our sustainability initiatives at Microsoft, and the commitments which really align well with what you're doing. So how does this translate from a technology perspective? What does ClimateClever look like under the hood?
So it's obviously split up into the front end and back end. The front end is currently React. It's a mono repo that reconfigures itself based on some environmental variables to what sort of app that it builds. It's quite interesting. And we deploy that through Versal, pretty standard stuff, but we're actually transitioning to SvelteKit. So we're going through a major new version release at the moment. So obviously the back end is moving on to Azure functions, which we'll talk about in a bit more, but the front end is transitioning to SvelteKit. There's a lot of reasons for this, but from a sustainability aspect there's most of the time we can achieve the same thing in SvelteKit with a third of the code that we did in React. So less code also means a smaller footprint. So that's a big reason for us. Our backend is mostly Node microservices. We use MongoDB for our database. We actually use their Atlas service because it makes managing it really easy. But currently we use serverless containers, no Kubernetes though. It's nothing that complicated, just nice, easy serverless containers. But we're migrating to Azure Functions, which is really fantastic because they only run when they need to. But also like the developer experience has been through the roof. Like the docs are great. When I've worked with other cloud providers, sometimes their docs are like the wild, wild west. But also like the integrations to Visual Studio Code, 1 click to set up a function app, 1 click to add a new function and choose what triggers it, 2 clicks in Azure to set up automated deployments. It's, we had the whole thing set up in 10 minutes, like the whole skeleton of the project. It was insane. So that was pretty fun. So that's kind of what it looks like under the hood and what it's transitioning to right now.
And yeah, that's really great to hear, that kind of feedback about the Azure platform and docs. Before I worked at Microsoft, I always kind of leaned on that stuff as an architect or a DevOps engineer, and I've even contributing to the docs through the GitHub repo, which makes it very, very able to be up to date with people actually using it. So Something that you mentioned was that you've split your development between the API and the front end with their own teams. What drove you to that decision?
Oof, there's a few reasons. I mean, the first one, it goes back to our mission that Vanessa said. Our mission is to make climate action accessible and affordable, right? So, the best way to do that is make your product accessible in many different ways. So you can't just use our web app. You can also use our API. You can also integrate our API into your app. Measure emissions and track actions and stuff that way. So the more people that are doing it, the bigger footprint we'll be able to remove from the planet. That's the idea. I mean, software wise, it's more like it's easier to just focus on the front end, build a really great user experience, and then on the back end, focus on the actual core logic that runs under the hood. And then I guess the other thing is like a growth reason. So as we grow and we start to target bigger businesses, bigger businesses are not going to be like, oh, great, we'll just use another app along with all the millions of other apps that we use. And then we're like, we want an API integration, right? So, if we build it that way from the start, we don't have to worry about it in the front end. Later on, oh, we need to build them an API. So it's like that from the get-go.
Yeah, and it really makes ClimateClever as an application something that can be built upon and integrated well with third parties or your partners, and to really kind of extend that social impact out through them as well. You've designed your backend architecture to be based on the outcomes of ClimateClever, so each microservice has its own outcome between measure, audit, and action. What kind of prompted that?
So yeah, microservices is a tricky thing. Like, I think I remember when I'm reading about it online, like everyone's got a conflicting opinion and a list of things you're not supposed to do. And like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm breaking all these rules that everyone tells me I'm not supposed to do, So don't listen to the noise online is the first thing. But we found that business logic wise, we had a real good scenario for splitting up our services in the API. So measure, audit, and action actually have nothing in common except something called an entity ID, and that's just a reference to a business or a school or a home. So we split them up. But one, because when you're working on it, it means you just focus on measure or just action. You don't have to think about anything else. So it clears up brain space. The other thing is, they scale up by themselves. So for some reason, all the schools seem to do their audit on the same day at the same time. It's like the users plan together to make my life difficult. And, they'll all run around the school auditing all their appliances. So audit will scale up while the rest stays really small, which, helps with our footprint as well, right? Because we're not scaling all our services up just because one part got busy. And then the other thing is, like, anyone who's worked for a startup will tell you, sometimes you can be riding that train to the next release, everything's on track, and then someone from the non-tech side will come in and be like, right, this needs to happen, or like, we've got this new opportunity, and it completely derails the train, and you need to be able to adapt fast. So it's really great to be able to just take that one service off and do some crazy changes for an hour and then put it back on. And that makes it really, really easier in that. I mean, there's always trade-offs, nothing's perfect, but it definitely is advantageous for us.
Yeah, and do you want to say something?
I was just going to say, outside of the team's perfect. What are you talking about, Alex?
So yeah, that easy ability to easily scale only the parts that you use also contributes to some of the sustainability goals. Only using the resources that you need to, which gives you a great side effect to kind of designing that way as well. You've taken us through your mission and how you brought this to life. I'd love to hear what some of the highlights have been since building ClimateClever.
I'll jump in first if you like, Alex. I was going to say, for me as a non-tech person, the biggest highlight was just seeing the app come to life. I mean, even today when I look at all of our devs and their screens and all the code, and it's like literally gobbledygook, it's magic what they do. And so being able to sort of translate all that, my ideas originally, but now our whole team's ideas into an actual product is so exciting. And I guess, some of the highlights, we've been featured on a few TV shows. That's always really exciting, and obviously has a spike in user growth at that time. And we've won some awards, which is also really nice, particularly for being a sort of impact-related business or a profit for purpose it can, can get tough at times, and it's always nice to sort of be acknowledged for that. But I would say, and I'm sure Alexander's going to agree with this, that the biggest highlight and thing that we're proud of with the company is seeing the impact that we can make, and that's down to the fact that we're so data driven, and our devs have done such an amazing thing that we can literally say we've saved our users thousands of tons of emissions, or saved them millions of dollars. We just saw that the other day with the schools, and getting that feedback from users saying, who appreciate the fact that they've now got a platform or a tool to help them on that journey. What about you?
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, I love the impacts. Like, it's nice to build something and not be causing problems in the world. Yeah, like just even small things, like hearing that a school saved enough money that year to fund their library budget for the next year, that's great. Or hearing that a home saved a few $100s off their bills this year so they could do something else, and obviously the business platform hasn't been out as long, but I'm really looking forward at the end of this year that we start running impact reports on our businesses and see how it went for them. So yeah, it's just fantastic to actually have a purpose in your job, other than because I love coding, because building stuff's fun, right? But it's nice to have an actual purpose other than just build stuff and earn money. It's great. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, that's a really awesome feeling. So we've had some questions come through the chat, so let's have a look at those. Probably the first one we'll go to is, how do you monitor your services to make sure everything is running okay at the moment?
Lots of different things. So we use Sentry for bug tracking, which is really, really important. That's integrated into front end, back end, everywhere. Something else that I would also recommend, that I think is sometimes people a bit finicky about: don't be afraid to manually force a bug crash in Sentry when something happens, because everyone's like, oh, let's log everything. We'll log this or log that. But you never check your logs, so how do you know what's happening? So like, if something's important, log it and then cause an error in Sentry, right? Because then you get alerts in your Slack or your phone, however you've set it up. We use better uptime for monitoring all the uptime of our services. We use the built-in cloud provider logs and CPU monitoring as well with our cloud provider. Obviously, we're currently switching that to Azure as well, so we'll be using Azure's built-in stuff. Yeah, because we mix that with Sentry and better uptime, and it just gives us full coverage, right? Like, and that's really all you need. And set alerts. I feel like and also price alerts as well, because like if suddenly you start churning through a lot of money, you need to know why, right? So lots of alerts, and yeah, Sentry is our main point of call. When something happens with Sentry, then we normally go and start checking the logs and everything else.
Cool. Can you share some of the outcomes after schools have started using your product?
Ooh, I want
Vanessa question.
Some of the outcomes. I mean, so when we had one of the schools that participated, that was actually filmed as on a documentary, one of the shows that I mentioned before, they managed to save $5,000 in 3 months, literally just from becoming aware of their footprint. So they didn't have any budget to implement anything like retrofit their lights or get solar or anything. So they literally just started walking around the school, and this is the kids really leading it, saying, okay, the air conditioning systems have to be set to the right temperature, not too high or too hot or too cold. Making sure things are switched off before, when you leave the room, even like during school holidays, because I think they measured it over the summer holidays. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but in Australia, over our summer period, we sort of shut down for 6 weeks. So, turning off fridges and a whole bunch of things that do consume a lot of energy. So yeah, and that becomes, what we are hoping is, that does become second nature to sort of just keep instilling those behaviours around the school. You can also, a lot of the schools are embedding it into the curriculum as well, so that they can actually use real life data to learn maths and science, rather than using sort of textbook examples. They're a little bit abstract. So it's really great to sort of be able to use this data for that. And I am sure that Greta Thunberg and the student climate strikes all around the world, have led to a lot of really disempowered, young people thinking that they can't make a difference. So it's been really great to sort of, give all these students in all these schools the ability to say, I can make a difference, and I have made a difference in my school, now in my home. And now we have a new government as well in Australia. So it worked.
Yeah. And they can really go from that, like doing everything manually, to showing that works through the measurement, and then going, okay, let's automate this now. So almost like a development process.
Oh, absolutely. And Alex just alluded to this before, but we've just started to run some impact reports across like all the schools in the platform. And we just saw that we saved, over 2 million, schools had saved over $2 million on their electricity and gas and water, all the different utilities. And I think it was like 100 tonnes per school that had been reduced on average across the school. So we're really excited to see that sort of impact, what impact comes out of businesses. But I would argue it will be more because they have the capacity and probably the financial ability to do bigger changes as well.
Awesome. Another question, have you had any issues with scaling your services as you've grown? So going from those initial days to now where you've got more customers?
I have to admit, like, even obviously Azure functions scale by themselves, and our serverless containers scale by themselves. So not really, they kind of just look after you themselves. I mean, sometimes I set limits and I might have to remove that limit for a little bit, but yeah, not really in terms of scaling. As long as your code's set up right with serverless infrastructure, the scaling is pretty much taken care for you. However, I have had code issues with scaling, like where the code that I've written has caused scaling issues. And that was more for me being happy clappy with microservices. Once I really got going with microservices, I was like, oh, let's split this up into a service and this as well. And then I'm like, you know what, I've created too many microservices. I'm just gonna scale that back a little bit. And so now we only have, we have 4. We have, and one of them is not even connected to the internet. It's just something internal from the other services, and it just works perfectly. I did get a little bit nuts at one point.
I'll just add as well, I don't know, because I'm not the techie person, so I don't really know what I'm talking about, but Alexander and the team have built a really great system that from the sort of the boring, nerdy carbon accounting point of view, you have to constantly be adding new emission factors and new emission streams and stuff, particularly as you go into different regions and stuff. So really thrilled at how Alexander and the team have built that, because it means we can easily scale and bring on all those new sources.
So what's the best way to get my kids' school involved with this?
Tell them to sign up.
I'm going to say they can literally just go to ClimateClever.org. This is if it's in an Australian school, ClimateClever.org, and you can literally just sign up for free. There are some paid tiers as well if you want reports or if you have multiple sites. But we didn't want to have any barriers. So just head to the website, and I mean you can reach out to us as well if you want more information from someone from our team.
Awesome, that's great. Before we wrap up today, I'd love to hear what advice you have for any developers looking to launch their own tech platform.
Well, my thing is just get used to failure, right? Like failure is your best friend. That saying like, oh, they just fell upwards into that job or whatever. That is literally what developers do. You just fail upwards. Like you just learn from your mistakes. Oh, I know how to build this now because I failed 500 times before. Just learn to be okay with failure would be my #1 tip.
There's a term we use internally as well called flirning. It's not failure, it's flirning. But my non-tech advice would be do your market research, because I feel like in this, the startup space, everyone can have a good idea, but it's really just understanding, does that idea already exist? Have thousands of other people also done it? So make sure you do some really good research around that. My other advice would be, if there's any women out there, definitely encourage you to just to go for it, and also start your own companies, like start your own platform, because the stats are terrible, as I'm sure you all know. There's not very, very few women in tech, but also less than 3% of global venture capital funding goes to female or women-led startups as well. So we really need to all step up there. And my final bit of advice, and I think Ben really talked this down before about the Microsoft journey. It's super inspirational, their climate targets. They've got fantastic, ambitious targets for the future, and they're also historically offsetting all their previous emissions as well. So go with those. If you're setting up a platform, go with Azure and do your bit for the climate as well.
Thank you very much for that. Thanks for sharing your story with us today, Vanessa and Alexander. For everyone who has joined us today, we hope you enjoyed our local connection, and thank you for the interaction and engagement. Our expert online will be on hand to answer any of the final questions you have in chat. Stay safe, stay well, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much.